Great evening, folks. Thank you for tuning in to the third episode of my new show, SchezzWho. SchezzWho results from inspiration from my wife, Andrea, my piece in this absurdist world. And she also created this YouTube channel. And I also want to thank Sanko Varner for partnering with the StreamYard, allowing me to bring you this broadcast. Tonight's show is special as I'll bring on Virginia Beach City Councilman Chris Taylor. I'd like to shout out Charlie Roy over at Southern Volkswagen Greenbrier, provider of quality used cars on Hampton Roads. You'll need a great deal with your car, which you'll get with Charlie Roy over at Southern Volkswagen Greenbrier. I'm a fan of my great neighbor, Miss Ellen. Her Ellen's Homestyle and Barbecue restaurants are awesome. One location on Indian River Road in Virginia Beach near Regent, and one on Portsmouth Boulevard in Portsmouth. Fantastic food. Now, here's a point about a little back and forth by current world champion Noah Lyles in the NBA world. See, Noah just won the 100-meter dash, the 200 meters, and the 4x100 relay at the World Championships in Hungary. He's literally on top of the world. And he is asked about growing track and field in prestige, and he pointed out his annoyance at people like NBA players saying world champion when they win the NBA championship. And he wanted to know what NBA players would be world champion of the United States. Noah contends athletes like himself compete against international peers in international cities for the specific goal of having nations beating nations. And he's completely right. I know Kevin Durant and Kendrick Perkins and PJ Tucker and Austin Rivers were heated over his comment, but like many of them do, they airballed on this. They play in the National Basketball Association, a professional league that is specifically domestic to the United States. Yes, the teams travel abroad in exhibitions, and there's a Canadian team, but that's a United States league. This isn't a competition where at the end of the NBA season, the Denver Nuggets then go on to play AS Monaco of France in a world final because that would be a world championship. And the Nuggets would have a problem doing so because the Joker would be playing for Serbia. Noah Lyles is the world's fastest man, and he's right about the concept of a world champion. But on that note, I want to throw it over to my guest tonight, Virginia Beach Councilman Chris Taylor. Let me bring him on right about now. A little point of fact, Councilman Taylor coaches basketball in this city too. So I'd like to ask first off, do you think the Denver Nuggets are the true world champions?
So first and foremost, today, my alma mater, we lost former President Billy Greer from Virginia Wesleyan College, now Virginia Wesleyan University. So rest in peace, Greer. But you're starting off with a hot topic. I guess I would relate it to college basketball, where you have a national championship tournament. And there are many international student athletes that play. But when you are crowned the D1, D2, or D3 champion, you are crowned the national champion. And so not going to get in a spat with any NBA players, but I think the track star does have a little ground for his argument.
I would agree with you. I would agree with you there, Mr. Councilman. Now, you're a coach in your free time. I just touched on that. You help run a family business too. You're a great family man. And you were all these years, you did that before you decided to be a councilman. So tell me a little bit about your history with family and business here in Virginia Beach.
Just born and raised in Virginia Beach, public school educated, K through 12, then went on to school for a little while at VCU before transferring down to Virginia Wesleyan College to play basketball, go Marlins. After college, I started volunteering in Kings Grant Recreation League, which sits in District 8, and just had a passion for helping the youth with skill development and just the basic skills. And that led to an opportunity to coach girls basketball at Lynn Haven Middle School. So I have been an employee of the Virginia Beach Public School System, coached basketball for 7 seasons, 5 with the girls, 2 with the boys. And so also Lynn Haven is in District 8. And so I love giving back. I was doing all the coaching before I had kids. And this past 2 years, I've been able to coach my sons, Caleb and Christian, over at the YMCA. And so it's a great opportunity to give back, and I just love basketball and youth. So, that's my story about coaching. That you probably already know. 6th generation. My mom and her sisters actually integrated Kings Grant Elementary School in the early mid-'60s. My Aunt Sandy, Virginia Tech Hokie, was the first woman of color to get a scholarship at the University of Virginia Tech, or Virginia Tech. And so just a long history here with my family, and excited to be on City Council serving District 8, where I was born and raised.
Now that brings me to my next question. Why would you want to do all that and then become a councilman?
No, I was sitting at home 18 months ago, like many of us, watching TV, complaining, and my wife said, "What are you going to do about it?" And that was kind of a competitive phrase, and so we started looking at what serving the city might look like. And at the time, I felt like City Council would be the best use of my gifts, my skills, my abilities. And we just started looking at what a campaign looked like, how to build a team, and we were fortunate to come out on top in November. And as soon as we got sworn in January, we had to pivot, using a basketball term, from campaigning to governing. And it's been a really a good 7 months on council, learning a lot. I enjoy working with my colleagues and the mayor. And it is a privilege and an honor just to be able to serve our city.
Now, I'm curious, when you ran for council and over the whole season, you raised a little less than $59,000. You defeated, rather convincingly, another candidate who raised just short of $130,000. I think there's a corruptive effort of too much money raised in politics in order to run for office. So what's your take on your success and how much negative money and influence you were able to avoid?
Well, like I had a mentor right out of college, and he said, money's not that important. It just ranks up there next to oxygen. When you talk about politics, running a campaign, you have to raise money unless you can self-finance. And at 38 years old, which I was 38 when I ran, we weren't in a position to, loan our campaign $20,000 or $25,000. And so we started off with people we knew and kind of a grassroots campaign. And we raised actually right about $44,000 up until the election. Then we raised a little bit after. But I think money has a role in politics, in campaigning, because signs aren't free, radio ads aren't free, mailers aren't free. My concern was with some of the individuals that donors that would like to support you, but in exchange for that support, they may ask that I'll give you an example. I'll support you, but I need you to get behind, 7-3-1 hybrid system. And so those were easy discussions for me, because the principle, stuck with me. My great grandmother used to teach me that, your word is all you have. Good manners will take you further than money. And so, I wasn't desperate to take large checks. We had a goal to raise $25,000. Really felt that we could win District 8 with raising $25,000. And kudos to John Andrews and Ronna Marsh for the race that they ran. But ultimately, I just felt that we were able to do it on a tight budget. And my background in small business, if you have $10 to make it through the day, you have to make it through the day on $10. So, we did what we did, and I'm just thankful for owners and even some of the larger ones.
Now, I think by being more of your own man, not beholding to such influence in political circles, you're more able to represent the people better. Much like the community action team, which measures this, you'd be able to look more towards supporting community issues over the aimlessly growing of the city budget. So if you don't mind, let's go over a few topics brought to the show by Virginia Beach's Georgia Allen. What are your thoughts on addressing inequity in city hiring?
So, that's a big issue. As many of your viewers may know, City Council is not responsible for the employees. That is our city manager. And so we don't really engage in the hiring, firing, in the process to onboard employees. I do think with where we are globally and even here in the United States, we have to try to find a way to lift the wages and compensate people for not only the skills and talents that they have, but the jobs that they're doing. And so I'm not sure the statistics or the data on the question that you posed, but my belief is if you have two people and they have the same skills, that they should earn similar wages. We do know that our city's 60 years young, and so I'm not going to deny that there may have been some practices in the past that may have limited the upward mobility of some. But I think overall, we're doing a good job, and there is room for improvement. But I'm very pleased with the employees that I speak with. They are satisfied with their ability to earn a living with our city government.
What would be the plan on reinvesting in struggling neighborhoods and communities here at Virginia Beach?
That's a great question, Conrad. Again, you'd probably have to come before the entire city council. With our district system, there's different needs in various districts. And so I think we came out of our retreat last week, the week before, with some strong priorities. And part of that priority or those priorities is trying to utilize monies within the budget to ensure that all districts, all neighborhoods, it may not be completely equal, but I believe each neighborhood, each community should have a community park that they can walk to, that they can safely play at. I believe all of our communities should have sidewalks, should have safe roadways, signage. And so I think we have some room to grow and a ways to go, but ultimately it's up to the city council to work together to collaborate with staff and city manager to ensure that our budget does reflect the needs of all the districts.
Now, is there a plan to efficiently reduce government spending without harming disenfranchised communities? I didn't hear that last part.
Locally, Conrad? Well, I mean, you were a witness to our budget discussions this past year. We were unable to deliver tax relief in a very serious time where families are struggling to put food on the table, to buy groceries, put gas in the tank. And so I was a little disappointed that we weren't able to deliver that tax relief. But ultimately, again, we work as a body, and the majority of our city council felt that we had some other priorities and needs outside of tax relief this year.
I'm also curious, and this is the last question from Ms. Georgia Allen. How can we as citizens help you in achieving those goals?
That's a great question. I really think we have to get people engaged. I ran on community, civility, and collaboration. When you look at the districts and you look at the voter turnout, we had roughly 101,000 voters come out in this last cycle, and we have over 400,000 people in the city. So roughly 26% of our population engaged or participated in the vote. And so what I would love to see is a more collaborative effort across both parties to get people out, to get people engaged. I've tried my best to appoint and recommend individuals for commissions, boards, and committees that have not worked in government before, or they have an interest, but they just haven't been a stakeholder, or they haven't had an inside track. And so I think it starts with on the ground. We have to get more voters out. When you look at the minority majority districts that we have in our city, 2 of them were up last cycle. I believe they were anywhere between 31 and 33% voter turnout. When you compare that to District 8, we had 58% voter turnout. So imagine you have 10,000 people in that district and 3,000 come out, but you have another district across the boulevard that has 10,000 and 5,800 people come out. Their voice it will be heard at a higher level than that 30%. And so we have to work diligently to ensure that people know how to vote, they know where to go, and that we get them out to vote.
Now, my next question comes from a friend who works in the city, Chris Hollis, and that's, do you take kindly to the idea of collective bargaining for city employees?
Another great question. Our city council is exploring the collective bargaining option right now. I'm not sure what department your friend works in, but I am aware recently our public works drivers and some of those individuals did get a step up or a step two raise, and that we did that without collective bargaining. Again, if you have council members that have a pulse on the workforce, are talking in their district, talking to the workers on the street, and can come together and make it a priority to ensure that we're paying individuals not only a living wage, but a competitive wage. I think collective bargaining is an option. It is a path, but I don't think it's the only way to ensure fair wages are within a culture.
All right, that's fair. Now, the next question is about the weather, specifically Idalia, which is taking a track that seemed to be very similar to Matthew. Matthew was a historically bad storm for this area, and the flooding was horrendous and costly. The city overwhelmingly supported a referendum to acquire debt for much needed infrastructure improvements, specifically for stormwater. It got delayed more than a few times, enough that Mayor Dyer had to say to the media, no, the city isn't going back on its word. And I'll put that image up here. That is from 2022, so before you were able to get on, but they were already doing it back then. So enough that Mayor Dyer had to say that, but if you could be blunt, what is Virginia Beach doing right now on this? And what is Virginia Beach doing possibly wrong or right on flooding preparation?
When you talk about the flooding referendum, 81% of people came out and said, we want this, and then we had the global pandemic. So you have a number of projects that were out to bid. We still have projects out. Phase 3 of Shore Drive is a significant one. We're looking at raising the levels of certain roads, adding infrastructure to assist with the mitigation. Last week I was down in Sandbridge, looking at the Sandbridge Road expansion project, which is also has some components of the flood referendum there. I think, again, it goes to the priorities. We have a fiduciary responsibility to ensure our taxpayers' dollars are spent in a responsible manner. But you also have this pandemic that came, global inflation, prices are rising. So I think the $563 million number is probably well above that right now. And so I want to encourage your listeners to engage their district council member, to ask these specific questions, come before council, ask for updates in terms of CIP. We're doing the comprehensive plan right now in that process. And so it goes back to engagement. But I have confidence that our body is going to do the right thing, that we're going to keep our word and try to bring forth some more of these projects, hopefully sooner than later.
Definitely, we hope sooner. Definitely sooner. Regarding weather again, if you could touch on the tornado experience in your district and what you did to help and how the city responded.
Earlier in the year, we did have a tornado touchdown in District 8, and fortunately for us, we had a lot of support here for the Something in the Water, and as I said before, our staff was remarkable. The men and women from all the organizations, the different agencies that came together to provide an immediate response to the Great Neck, Shore Drive, Bayfront area community. No loss of life. Our mayor at the time, he was out on the ground. I was on the ground. Our staff was on the ground. And so, one thing you can't control is the weather. We can't control Mother Nature, but we can control planning. We can control strategy and bringing forces together to ensure that we do our best when these natural disasters occur. But I was very pleased with our emergency management services, our police, our fire, rescue. I mean, just first class, world class job. We have to be watchful. We have to be vigilant. But ultimately, I think our staff and the community got an A+ on that tornado response.
That's exactly what I want to hear. Now, city spending is always important, but not all city dollars are equal. $1 spent building an oceanfront attraction could otherwise be spent supporting a new minority owned business. $1 spent field testing um, does not give money to a panhandler sign, could otherwise be spent on infrastructure to reforest many of our cut down green spaces. So I want to go over some votes of yours that I think highlight your important view of tax dollar stewardship. So let's begin with what brought you to your vote on the Amazon roadway infrastructure design?
Yes, I mean the Amazon deal was brought to our body by economic development. Which city would name a city that wouldn't want Amazon to to choose them? So my vote wasn't necessarily on the applicant. It was more so we have had roadway projects on the books, some for 10 years, 15 years, and during the reconciliation process, I saw some of those projects get gutted. I saw monies transferred from our sports, tourism, marketing to go to other projects. And so, if we have economic development opportunities that come and they require significant investment, I think that was $22.5 million for the roads and the infrastructure. I just couldn't justify ignoring Shore Drive, Stage 4, the Shore Plan that's been on the books for 20 plus years, uh, a lack of sidewalks, just some of the roadways in total disrepair. And so it gets back to our priorities. I think you can do responsible economic development while at the same time investing in infrastructure. So I don't want anyone to get it wrong. I'm not against economic development. I'm not against Amazon or whoever the applicant is coming to town. But if we can fund that at 22.5 million in the midst of what some would say a global recession with inflation, then I think we can hopefully find the resources to take care of the roads that we already have on the books.
Now, I'm surprised some of the more Democrat voices on council didn't vote that way because Amazon, while a big employer, has questionable workplace quality, is anti union, and routinely likes to get government backing to expand to new places as it seemingly rapidly consumes our entire economy. Now, I'm also a fan of your vote on the new Fall Music Festival, which was against about 750,000 of city money spending on advertising for it. I want you to expand on why and also touch on how much more impactful that would be if it were, say, to fund equity-based business startup grants.
So, I mean, again, it goes to, and again, I don't think a yes vote for the money is right, and I don't think a wrong vote was right. It's just where each council member found themselves. Our conventions visitors bureau has almost $11.7 million in their advertising marketing budget. So, for me, the value proposition that this additional $750,000 was going to significantly impact our ability to market and advertise Virginia Beach as a tourist destination around the nation. It didn't meet the standard for me. Also, I was able to read a study from November 2022 with this firm's collaboration with ECSC, and it was quoted that collaboration did not produce a robust economic output. There was economic output, but for what money we spent, I believe for every dollar we put out, the return was anywhere from 33 to 36 cents. And so, as I asked someone earlier today, how many times would you hand a dollar out and get 35 cents back? Will you keep handing those dollars out to get that return, just to fill additional hotel rooms that would already probably be filled because of our longest standing art festival, the Boardwalk Art Festival? And so again, for me, it wasn't the company, even though there were some concerns there with their ability to execute. For me, it was that $750 real $1,000 that, as you just stated, could go to a park. It could go to road expansion. It could go to standing up a land trust for the city. It could go to affordable housing. There's so many ways that money could be spent. But again, a majority of the body felt that it was the right thing to do. And ultimately, we'll find out if it's going to really enhance that weekend.
Now, if you could, I would like you to bring this all back to the Virginia Beach Convention Center and the Virginia Beach Sports Center. Both of these required heavy infrastructure investments in order to create and are now running in the red, millions of dollars in the red. So where is this problem? Where is it coming from? And what is the solution if you happen to know of it?
Well, I don't have the solution, but I'm so thankful for the broad experience I had, whether it was multifamily right out of college to sports marketing for one of the largest hospitality firms in the area. So I have a background. I was selling sports. I've sold to AAU. I've brought in hockey teams. I've booked all the double rooms in the hotel and been yelled at by the general manager. For me, again, it goes back to kind of the holistic strategy is, with post-COVID, where is the convention business at in terms of nationally? Do we fit the mold to really bring in large conventions? And then some of the hotels that we've built and added to the inventory have large convention space. So are they competing against our convention center? When you look at the sports center, I want to be very clear. The sports center is losing money, but it is a tremendous asset to our city. I believe one of the challenges, and I've expressed this to our city manager, is when I sold sports, when you look at the Boo Williams complex in Hampton, they don't have the June through August or September that they're competing with in terms of the oceanfront or resort. So the teams that go to Boo Williams in the summer in Hampton are able to get double rooms. They're able to get a much more affordable rate, and on average, they stay 5 days. When you look at our sports center and our heavy influx of tourism and tourists that come to town between May and this upcoming weekend, it's very hard to justify as a hotel owner to give away a double room at $229 a night when you could sell that same room at $429 a night because it's in season. And so I think we have to look at the strategy. What was it? What it should be? We have to look at the relationship between our CVB and the operator and how that worked out, because ultimately it's a tremendous asset. Cities travel here yearly to really emulate what we've done. And Boo Williams in Hampton has been a tremendous success, 10 years running before they sold it back to the city with a 15-year agreement to continue managing it. And so, again, I want to add value to the discussion. I'm not sure if many of my council members understand my background in sports marketing and youth sports and hospitality, but ultimately it is a team game, and I'm willing to contribute where I can to help solve some of these problems.
Now, we're actually running just a little bit faster than I thought we might, so I'm going to bring up a couple of spontaneous questions, if you don't mind. Housing in Virginia Beach is kind of costlier the past couple of years, and it's been prior to that due to inflation and many other factors. I think you've touched on that recently. Would it be possible that you could speak on your idea of improving affordable housing specifically for this area?
So I was fortunate to work with our staff to host a housing summit, I believe back in May. You have lowercase affordable and then uppercase affordable. So your uppercase affordable housing, that's going to be defined by income, percentage of households. And then you have your lowercase affordable, which is the person that goes out and they want to find housing that fits within their budget. They're not looking for a stipend. There's not a voucher attached to it. This could be a recent college graduate that's moving back to the area. They don't want to live in their parents' basement. They go out and they discover that $17, $18, $19 an hour or $50,000 a year salary is not enough to go rent a 2-bedroom apartment in town center. And so there's so many aspects of affordable housing. What I would like to focus on is the city's ability to assist those in need. So again, standing up a housing trust, a land trust, and then looking at opportunities to either retain property that we have or to acquire property that we have, and then work in collaboration and partnership with housing developers. What I don't like to see is instances where we as a city or our Virginia Beach Development Authority sells land below market rate to someone, to a developer, for them to then go build housing that's not affordable. And so I think that goes back to strategy, it goes back to policy, and I'm very hopeful and confident that this city council has made this a priority and that we will continue to work towards more equitable, affordable housing.
Oh, I very much so would like them to make it a priority, and we can make some good inroads on that if they collectively make an effort on that, which I think recently did regarding the Rudy Loop area. If you could touch a little bit on what you see going forward and what Virginia Beach is going to do and what you might want to tinker with, if you could.
Again, the people spoke loud and clear that they wanted a park, and so that's the direction we're heading in. What that park looks like, I don't know. I believe we're going to have some conversations over the next several months and define, some of the requirements and what we expect and what we need for. Someone's at the door. I'm actually sitting at Smoothie Stop, so I had a couple people walk up from One Life, but nonetheless, so I'm confident again that we're going to do the right thing. I think the manager and the staff kind of have a good hold on where we want to go. And so I encourage residents to be watchful, be vigilant, continue to engage their council member, share ideas. If you want a splash pad, communicate that. Give us ideas of what you want to see, and we'll do our best to represent those ideas.
Now, that is due to making sort of tarnished areas of the Virginia Beach oceanfront get better, just like they did with the Vibe District. Do you think it would be interesting if there are other Vibe District type capabilities that could be had in other parts of the city, or does it have to be just at the oceanfront?
That's a great question, Conrad. This one's tough because I give credit to Kate Pittman, the Vibe, and all the stakeholders down there. They have come together as a community. They've brought in the private sector. They've worked with the public sector. They've had a clear vision of what that corridor would look like, and they've executed. And so kudos to the Vibe District Councilman, I believe Worth Remick, Vice Mayor Rosemary Wilson. They've been integral in standing that up and supporting, the Vibe as well as previous council members. So I'm open to looking at other areas in our city that would be conducive to having something like the Vibe, but it does take individuals within those stated communities to work with staff, to bring forth ideas, to go out to the public sector, to raise some money, to bring forth ideas. And I think one of the main ways that residents and citizens can get involved is, again, contacting your council member, filling out a talent bank, get on a board, get on a commission, because this is where some of that heavy lifting is taking place. So by the time you see the mural, it's not just because someone came and said, I want to do a mural in Bayside. There was work that was put into it. So if there are creatives out there, artists out there, reach out to the council members that have been a part of this discussion, reach out to Kate Pittman, ask how they did it, why they did it, and seek that collaborative effort. And I think we could see many more vibes pop up over the next 2 to 3 years in our city.
And I would be very much intrigued if they do pop up. And that sort of brings me to the idea of the fact that we're in direct districts now. And reaching out to your councilman, some might think, well, I only have one that I can reach out to. I used to have 11. So now could you sort of wrap this all into how you've seen the journey of our at-large system becoming just direct districts, where your support may have changed, what it is now, so on, so forth?
So I never really understood the argument that a district system would water down a member's ability to know what's going on in another district. Ultimately, I've been fairly active. There's a ton of opportunities every day to go out into the city and engage business owners, to engage locals, to engage citizens. So my experience has been good. Yes, District 8 is a priority, but on a weekly basis, I get emails. I talk to people out throughout the city. I don't ask them, what district do you live in? I just engage with them. And so I think there is some I guess, meat to the argument that the at-large system allowed for you to be responsible or accountable to more people. But here's the thing. When you look at maybe it was a 2018 race, I might be wrong, or 2020, Brad Martin, Lewis Jones. Brad Martin, I believe. Brad Martin had more votes in the district, but Lewis was able to get more votes at large or within the city. And so for the person that says the 731's better, if the citizen 9 selected Brad, but Lewis had more support across the city, does that mean that council member would pay more attention to the at-large or to the district? So ultimately, I know each day I get phone calls and people are shocked that I pick up the phone. They said in the past they haven't had the ability to engage or interact or actually get a hold of their council member. And that's kind of shocking because, at the end of the day, we run to serve. We serve the people. I have 44,000 people. So whether you're Republican, a Democrat, independent, if your trash doesn't get picked up, you want your trash picked up. If your street's not safe because people are speeding, that's not a partisan issue. So I want to look at how do we, within this new system, go out and work together as council members that represent districts to focus on district needs while also acknowledging that we do have a city and there are macro issues or macro concerns that have to be dealt with while also addressing the micro, which would be your individual district.
Here's a good example of that because I've been interested in the Virginia Beach's local politics for many a year, including districts that I weren't in, which was for, say, Princess Anne's district. Or I know that flooding is an issue there. Development is odd at times because we have a green line that's been there for many a decade, and it has an important purpose. But then you read that they have rezoned a little bit for, say, a rather large wedding venue. Or now there's a alleged Project Wayne coming towards that area. And it's just, is the council as a whole collective body possibly lessening its seriousness regarding the green line? And as someone who isn't in that district, you would still be able to care about that other district.
Yes. I went on the record. Councilwoman Henley had a very articulate justification of why she didn't want to support Project Wayne. My concern was I felt that the rezoning or the discussion around rezoning was separate from the economic development opportunity. And so if we want to really take a close look at the green line and the lack of land and some opportunities that may exist below the line, that's one thing. But to couple that with a specific economic opportunity that wasn't going to RFP, I don't think it was going to be a competitive bidding process. It was, again, an unsolicited offer that came to us. And so those are two separate issues. I think we have to look at the green line. We have to look at the development. We have to look at the lack of housing. We have to look at the need for more industrial. And again, shout out to Councilman Worth Remick, whose background is in commercial real estate. He's the one to speak with. He knows it inside and out. For me, if that's the last large piece of land we have, is the best use for that a medical facility, or are there other uses that would better be suited for that property? And so I'm not against Project Wayne, but for me, it was kind of the marriage of the rezoning and then the specific project for Project Wayne.
And I know you could also pay attention to the city as a whole and listen perhaps in a teamwork to how other fellow council people are going to reach out to you and be like, hey, I'm really interested in this upcoming idea. Perhaps you might be able to help with that. Say, Parks and Recreation, where I work now, this year brought in Parks After Dark, and that's in the Bayside area of Virginia Beach. And I hear it's been wildly successful. They're thinking about bringing it out to other parts of the city in the very near term. And I know in the Centerville area, they want a rec center, which they haven't had for a while. And I know in the Kimsville area where the former Farm Fresh used to be, and now that Fitness is near the Cinema Cafe, is supposed to become a development there. So you're able to watch a lot of that and be like, you know what, this is probably something I can support or can't support. It's just, I like the idea that you might be able to work as a team on that fashion, even if you represent different areas.
What prevents a council person in District 1 from reaching out to a council member in District 6 and saying, hey, what are you hearing on this issue? What do you think about that? We get emails to the same email account. And so I think with 5 new members, we're doing our best to work together, figure out, what each member's priorities are, how they go about accomplishing some of those goals, and then working together. And so I'm very pleased with the work we've done. I think we have a lot of work to do. If you heard me at the retreat, I threw out a little saying. I said my plate is full, or our plate is full, and the buffet is hot. And so ultimately, I think we have to remove some things from the plate. Let some other opportunities that we've already invested in kind of bubble up, see if they're going to be successful before we just continue adding on. Because again, where I grew up in the country, in a kind of old-fashioned household, your great-grandmother, your mother looked at you kind of weird if you hadn't finished your plate and you went back up to get seconds. And so we need to eat what we have. We need to execute on some of the investments that we've made. You got Atlantic Park that's coming out of the ground, almost $140 million of taxpayer money. Let's get that up and running. Let's see if ticket sales are going to be where they're projected. You got Rudy Loop. We have the Sports Center, Convention Center, a number of economic development opportunities. I think right now, if we can just execute and help and see if those produce, we'll be okay.
I do want to touch on a comment from my dad, who is watching here, Charlie Schesventer, who said, how does one get upon a commission that they might be interested in? So let's hear it straight from the source.
Hey, Charlie, great question. First, you need to identify what district you live in. Then you want to identify your council person. You want to contact the city clerk or go online and fill out a talent bank application. And that will, you'll be able to check which commissions boards you're interested in. And each week or every other week, we look at how those positions are being filled, and we nominate individuals. And so it's up to your council member to nominate the members for the boards and commissions that they're assigned. And so reach out, get your talent bank filled out, and then ask your council member to nominate you to be on one. And that's kind of how it's worked in District 8. And I think we've been able to, really diversify the members that are serving on these boards and commissions.
Getting close to wrapping up here, and I am curious if you could touch on thoughts you had about going into city council, what it might be like, and what your experience has been. Is it actually more rewarding, more frustrating? Just what is the experience like, and how it's different than what you thought going in?
Well, I guess first I didn't realize, you are a public figure. And so, whereas I used to be able to go to One Life or out in public and just work out and go get gas and coffee. Now, you have constituents that want to talk and want to express and communicate different things. And that's really cool. It's an honor to serve the city that, my dad was born in, my mom, raised in, again, 6 generations. I don't have any frustrations. I think my background in corporate America, running a small business, working in the multifamily industry around people, ultimately, it's a body. So you have 10 members in the mayor. And so you try to identify things you have in common. You try to get on the same pace. We're not always going to agree, but we have to move forward. I've been very pleased with our staff. I mean, we have an incredible group of talented individuals that make up our city government. And so I'm just thankful for the opportunity to serve. I was telling my 6-year-old the other day, when I was growing up, I watched my dad climb telephone poles every day for a living. And so for Christmas, we would get him coveralls and warm clothes. And so the opportunity that I have, just one generation from that, where my children see me going to City Hall, they understand what City Hall means. They understand who the mayor is. They understand that Daddy is serving his community. I mean, that's priceless. My perspective was blue collar, do the best you can and bring home your paycheck and save some money. And so for my kids to have that perspective of service, I'm speechless. So I'm thankful for the opportunity. For all the District 8 people that are listening, thank you for entrusting me to serve you. And for those that aren't in District 8, thank you for the opportunity to represent our city.
And this brings me near the end. Lastly, Councilman Taylor, I want to applaud your transparency and your communication on your year in office so far, or a little less than a year. The public these days want people in office who are first approachable, second open, third very present in the community. And you went out in the storm, you did multiple town halls, you make social media notes, you speak up in depth at council meetings. I even saw you on the Virginia Beach Liberty podcast, and you're on here tonight. In my book, this is exactly the type of councilman behavior I wanted to have when I ran. And it's the type of representative that will get high marks from organizations that task themselves with judging these council people and their work, like the Community Action Team. So I want to thank you for that and say, do not change. So any final thoughts for tonight, Councilman Taylor?
No, I want to say thank you, Conrad, for being persistent. I know, you'd reached out earlier on, and I never forget, Governor Youngkin may not be a fan of yours, but him and Attorney General Jason Myers, when I was really looking at running, they both said the same thing. They said, Chris, you're younger, you have a family, you have young kids, you have a small business, and ultimately you're going to have to balance. You're going to have to balance those, or you're going to lose one. And so what I would really love to see is for our younger people to get engaged, to get active. It is a sacrifice to run for office, but there's support out there. We really have a need in our city. We look at the past 60 years, we look at our present, and then we have our future. And so the highlight of my week, of my day, is when I'm out in public and an 8-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 22-year-old, a 40-year-old, a 50-year-old comes up and says, Councilman Taylor, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for the sacrifice you're making. We're not looking back. We have to look towards the future. And guess what? Our future is bright, but we do have to diversify our city. We have to look at opportunities to bring different cultures in. We have to look at opportunities to work with the cultures that are presently here. We have to look at opportunities to bring small business owners here, support them in their desire to, contribute to society. We have to look at our education system. Something big for me is education, being that, my mom and my dad didn't have the opportunity to go to four-year college. And so my brother was the first in our family to graduate four-year school. And so there are so many issues, but the answer to all of them is communicating effectively, listening, understanding the different perspectives, and then coming together and defining goals and working towards those goals. And that's collaboration. So Conrad, keep up the great work. I know you're working hard, 1 and 2 jobs. We appreciate everything you're doing out here. And if there's anything I can do to support your voice in the community, let me know, sir.
Thank you immensely for that, for this great acquaintance that I have with you. And thank you for coming on tonight, just being honest with what you feel about serving the citizens of Virginia Beach. I want to just offer, be wary of the next day or so, as the possibility of this weather comes in and you, the wife, and the 3 kids get really well the next day.
All right. God bless you. And I'll talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. Have a great night. Now, thanks again to Councilman Taylor for coming on tonight to share his words. I look forward to having on our next guest soon. Now, remember, like this video, subscribe to the page, and tune in for the next SchezzWho. And take care.